his grave.
Good morning, all you Hope folks. Well, I've walked way back up in these woods here, and to tell you the truth, I may have gotten myself lost. I'm not sure about where I am. So I think I'm just going to have to find a place that'll work to video this message and then kind of figure out how to find my way back home after that, okay? I'll look for a spot. Give me a second. Well, I see a spot. Might work all right. Got a log I can sit on. Let's see how this works. Oh, sit on this log. Oh, ooh, it's a little wet too. But I think it'll work all right. Let's just, in this spot right here, ask God to continue to show us how to get life right. We've learned already that if we're going to get life right, we're going to have to make right choices. Now, I'm not talking about choices like whether to go to Walmart in Kingsport or Walmart in Rogersville. We're talking about choices that set a direction or a path in our lives. Because the direction that we set in our lives by our choices will determine the destination. The way we're going will determine where we end up. We're going to end up wherever our choices take us. To make right choices, though, I have to have wisdom. Wisdom relative to choices is knowing what choice to make, knowing the right choice to make. That kind of wisdom, we have learned, only comes from God. We looked next, having looked at those fundamentals, we looked at the formula for right choices, found in Proverbs chapter 3. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. That's the first ingredient. Come to the place where you know, and I know, that God has the right answer. God is the one who knows what we need to do. We need to trust Him for that. Next, do not depend on your own understanding. First, I trust God, and then I choose not to trust me. Again, I can trust me to decide whether to go to Rogersville or Kingsport, but I can't trust me in making choices that are going to set a direction in my life. I don't have that kind of wisdom. So I trust God for that wisdom, and I don't trust myself for that wisdom. Then I seek His will in all that I do. I have to come to the place where I want my choice to be right for God before it's right for me. I come to the place where I want my choice to please Him. I come to the place where I want my choice to reveal who He is in my life to everybody around me. And then it says He will show me the path to take. You see, when I put all that in place, I trust God to give me the right choice to make. I don't trust myself to make it. I determine that I want whatever choice I make to please God and to reveal who He is in my life. And then God says, now I'm going to show you the direction to go. I want to add to those fundamentals and to the formula this morning some facts. Fact number one, God created this world. Then He created me and put me in it. God created this world. You see, if we're going to be successful in this world, you're going to have to start right there. In order to make choices that will be right, I have to understand that God created the place where I live. Now, I know there are a lot of people and a lot of arguments and all kind of different things that people would say, well, God didn't do that, it happened this way, all those different things. But let me tell you, folks, if I don't start with the fact that I know God created it, I'm not going to do well here. Some would say, well, it started out a one-cell organism in some primordial soup. And after 1,000,000 years or so, that one cell divided into two, and then that two divided into four, and four divided into eight, and from that came invertebrates, and those invertebrates were swimming around in the primordial soup. Then at some point, 1,000,000 or so years later, those invertebrates crawled out on dry ground and they developed a backbone, and they started to crawl around on dry ground, and after another 1,000,000 years or so, they developed legs, 4 legs, and so they walked around in this world on 4 legs, and after 1,000,000 or so years from there, they stood up on their hind legs and they began to walk around on their hind legs. And another 1,000,000 or so years went by and they grew a tail. And they realized they could go up in a tree and swing around in a tree by their tail. And 1,000,000 or so years later, the tail fell off and they hit the ground, and they went to a store and they bought some clothes and they bought a cell phone, and they went back in the woods somewhere, and on that cell phone they videoed a message that they would give to all the other folks who lost their tail. Well, I got a question about that. If all that's true, why are there still monkeys? Did the monkeys that still exist, the ones that are in the zoo and other places, are they just some kind of losers? In other words, they have to be in a zoo somewhere and eat peanuts that the folks that are where we are throw them. Or what happened in their case? Why are there still monkeys? Well, a lot of people would say, well, there goes one of those redneck preachers talking stupid. Well, that may be the case, but sounds like a good question to me. I think I'll just go to how God said he did it. He says in Proverbs 3, it was by wisdom. By wisdom the Lord founded the earth. By understanding he created the heavens. By his knowledge the deep fountains of the earth burst forth, and the dew settles beneath the night sky. God says, I created it, the place where you live, your world, by wisdom. He created it with such design and order that the smartest people in this world are yet to figure it out completely. You see, to live here successfully, I'm going to have to submit to the created order. I'm going to have to start out by saying, God created this a certain way. And for me to live here successfully, I'm going to have to submit to that. Just some of the laws that God put in place, the law of biogenesis, that says life must come from life. The law of chemistry, our bodies are powered by chemical reactions. The law of planetary motion, the sun and the moon and the stars, they all stay right where they're supposed to stay and do what they're supposed to do all the time. The law of physics, the law of mathematics, the law of logic, the law of the uniformity of nature. You see, in this creation, I have to submit to those things. Each one of those laws exists simultaneously, and each one is dependent on the other. None of them can operate alone. They have to all fit together. And so in this creation where God has placed me, I have to submit to those things. God has created me a certain way. And because he's created me a certain way, he created me so that I can live consistently with the order and design of his creation. Into this creation, God placed you and me. You say, well, I don't know about all that. Well, I tell you what, try this. Hold your breath. Just hold your breath. I'll hold mine. Hold your breath. You know what? You can't hold your breath for just a certain amount of time. In fact, if you stop breathing, you will die. You know why? God made it that way. That's part of the design. I have to have oxygen to live. I have to breathe to stay alive. And if I choose not to breathe, I won't stay alive. You see, I have to submit to the design and the order. That's just a fact. But I want to add some truth to the facts. Some truth to the fact. When we were placed into this world, you know what every one of us did immediately? Took off our own way. We just set our own path and started down it. The Bible says in Isaiah that all of us are like sheep. We've all gone astray and chose to follow our own path. Proverbs says that doesn't end up well. Proverbs says there's a way that seems right to everybody, but it ends in death. It doesn't necessarily, although ultimately it does, mean that we die physically, but it means it's not going to work. To choose my own way is not going to work. It's not going to turn out well, God says. So in order for me to do well here, I'm going to have to get my wisdom from the one who created the place where I live. Proverbs says that the beginning of wisdom is God. I have to start with God. He is the one through whom I'm going to have to get the information I need to live successfully in his creation. If I get that wisdom, listen to some of the benefits of wisdom. Proverbs 2, 9 through 11. Then you will understand what is right, just, and fair, and you will find the right way to go. For wisdom will enter your heart, and knowledge will fill you with joy. Wise choices will watch over you. Understanding will keep you safe. Proverbs 3, 13 through 18. Joyful is the person who finds wisdom, the one who gains understanding. For wisdom is more profitable than silver, and her wages are better than gold. Wisdom is more precious than rubies. Nothing you desire can compare with her. She offers you long life in her right hand and riches and honor in her left. She will guide you down delightful paths. All her ways are satisfying. Wisdom is the tree of life to those who embrace her. Happy are those who hold her tightly. And it says too in Proverbs that wisdom is crying out to us all the time. Think about that. God's saying, as you're going down your own path, wisdom is crying out to you all the time. Crying out to you saying, get wisdom from me so that you will choose the right path to go. Proverbs 9, 1 through 6. Wisdom has built her house. She has carved its 7 columns. She has prepared a great banquet, mixed the wines, and set the tables. She has sent her servants to invite everyone to come. She calls out from the heights overlooking the city. Come in with me, she urges the simple. To those who lack good judgment, she says, come and eat my food and drink the wine that I have mixed. Wisdom says, leave your simple ways behind and begin to live. Learn to use good judgment. Wisdom is crying out to us all the time. Leave your simple ways behind and begin to live and learn to use good judgment. But I want to add the most important truth about wisdom. See, it was by wisdom that God created the earth. We saw that a little bit earlier. By wisdom, God said, He created all that there is. Now listen to this. Very important. In Colossians 1, 15 through 17, it reads this way. Christ is the visible image of the invisible God. He existed, that is Christ, before anything was created and is supreme over all creation. For through Him, that is through Christ, God created everything in the heavenly realms and on earth. He made the things we can see and the things we can't see. Through Christ, God created everything, such as thrones and kingdoms and rulers and authorities in the unseen world. Everything was created through Him. Everything was created through Christ and for Him. He existed before anything else, and He holds all creation together. Now, remember, God said the world was created by wisdom. Now He's saying the agent in creation was Christ. Over in Colossians 2, further in Colossians 2, verse 3, we read, in Him, that is in Jesus, lie hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. You understand what God is saying? God is saying, I created the world by wisdom. The agent in creation was Christ. Christ is wisdom itself. God is saying, I created everything through Jesus Christ. So, the one crying out, when we talked about wisdom crying out to us, the one crying out to us is actually Jesus. And Jesus is saying to all of us as we go down our paths and make our choices and do all these different things that are going to ultimately end up not turning out well, wisdom, Jesus, is crying out to us. And He's saying, come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and find rest for your souls. Jesus is saying, listen to me. I'm crying out to you. I am your answer. I am the one, He said, if you follow me, you won't stumble around in the darkness. You won't be making wrong choices that take you to wrong places. If you follow me, you will have the light that leads to life. So, the fact is, God created this place where we live. And He created it by wisdom. And that wisdom was Jesus Christ. So in order to find our way, in order to have wisdom, we'll have to have Jesus. And Jesus is crying out to us to come to Him and follow Him. And we will find life. Well, I want to also, each week, look at a principle in Proverbs that we can go with going ahead, going forward. And this week, it's going to be in Proverbs chapter 4, starting in verse 25. Look straight ahead and fix your eyes on what lies before you. Mark out a straight path for your feet. Then stick to the path and stay safe. Don't get sidetracked. Keep your feet from following evil. That's a principle that everyone has to start with. I have to mark out a straight path for my feet, and then follow that path and don't get sidetracked. For the Christ follower, you see, you have to go a little bit further, maybe over into the New Testament, and find out that the path that I need to choose is the path to Christ-likeness. To determine that the direction in my life is going to be to live my life in a way that pleases my Lord. The way that pleases my Lord is I choose to follow Him, to keep Him in sight. Hebrews says we're all given a race to run, and we do that by keeping our eyes on Jesus. You see, if I want to make it in this world, I have to choose the path that Jesus chooses for me. And that is to follow Him and live a life that is pleasing to Him. Paul said in Philippians, his greatest fear was he was going to do something that wasn't going to please Jesus. That's what it means. Choose a path that my greatest fear would be that I'll do something God doesn't like. And when you choose that path and you don't get sidetracked from it, you end up in the right place. You find life, not just life now, but life eternal. Mark out a straight path for your feet. Look straight ahead. Don't get sidetracked. You end up in the right place. My choices set my direction. My direction or my path determines my destination. Now, having said all that, I'm back to finding my way back home. I'm going to have to start doing that right now. Maybe I need to apply the truth from Proverbs as I do. I'll talk to you later. Well, trying to find my way back home. Proverbs said, mark out a straight path. This looks like the way to me. A straight path. It said, don't get sidetracked. Keep your feet from following evil. Well, that's what I'm doing. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, though. Wait a minute. The road forks right here. There's a road that goes to the left. There it is right there. It looks good too. It looks a lot easier. And it seems like home is that way. But the straight path is down there. It doesn't look as easy. It is a path, but it doesn't look as easy. This way looks best. But this way is straight. Proverbs said, mark out a straight path. Don't get sidetracked. Okay, that other way looks better, but don't get sidetracked. Mark out a straight path. I'm going to go this way. Well, I stayed on the straight path. There were places along the way that looked like they might have been better, but I chose not to get sidetracked and to stay straight. And guess what? There's home. Folks, real lesson to be learned here. When I mark out a straight path for my feet that's consistent with the will of God for my life, and I determine I'm not going to be sidetracked, then the circumstances in my life become subject to that choice that I've made. The circumstances in my life don't determine where I go. The choice that I have made and marked out determine where I go. Choose to follow Jesus. You make it home just fine.
Good morning, everybody. To all my Hope family out there, miss you guys. Can't wait to get back together with you, hopefully soon. And to anybody visiting with us this morning, my name's Alan. I'm worship leader at Hope at the Gap, and my wife Miriam works with our teenagers, and I help her with that sometimes too. Really miss those guys, and tell you, can't wait to see them again, because it's not the same not being able to get together in person. But grateful that we can get together online, though. That's still a major blessing. But I want to talk a little bit about me this morning. I don't do that a lot, so a lot of y'all might not know a lot about me. But anyway, before I dive into that, I wanted to just say this, that for us to understand where we fit in God's plan, we have to understand, number one, who God is, and number two, who we are to God. For me, understanding who I am to God was a total game changer for me. You see, I battled anxiety my whole life. There's really no good reason for it. I didn't have a bad childhood. My childhood was actually really good. No traumatic events in my life that I can think of anyway that would have caused it early on. Never battled any addictions that would have caused anything. Most people would have looked at my early life and said, "Hey, you've got it great," and they were right. I did. But even though I had nothing going on, I always battled anxiety. And one thing I did battle when I was younger was my weight. I was a really big kid, and nobody really saw that as a problem but me. I was really popular on the playground. I used to get on one end of the seesaw, and the kids used to love to pile on the other end and see how many of them it would take to actually lift me up. But I struggled with the fact that I was heavy. The other things that I struggled with, nobody could really see. One of them was relating to people. I didn't talk a lot, and when I did, it was usually really awkward. I did have friends, but I felt more like a tag-along than a real friend, because I really didn't get to know anybody. So it's hard to be a good friend if you really don't know anybody. So as I got older, my anxiety just gave way to fear. And it's fear of being alone, fear of what others thought of me, fear of doing things that are just normal things that you do. And it really crippled me. But my junior year of high school, a couple of my friends asked me if I was saved. I cannot ever remember a time that I didn't believe in Jesus. And back then, that's all being saved was to me. Do you believe in Jesus? And anyway, when they asked me, I said, I think so. And they said, no, you don't think so. It's either yes or no. So they went through the plan of salvation. And that started to sink in. And I realized that I had never asked to be forgiven. And I had never given my life to Christ. So anyway, shortly after that, in my room at home, I gave my life to Jesus. I didn't realize it at the time, but things started to change for me at that point. And what changed was my fear started going away, and my anxiety became a motivator. Within the next year, I lost 100 pounds. And within the next 3 years, I had really transformed from a totally insecure person that was afraid of practically everything to a person who was confident and was willing to tackle anything that was put in front of them. The only problem was I wasn't in church, and even though I knew I belonged to Jesus and I tried to live a good life, I tried to be good to everyone, I was not growing in my walk with Jesus. So my freshman year of college, I was sitting in chemistry class, and this girl walked in. She was beautiful. You could just tell by looking at her that she was something special. And she wound up coming and sitting down a couple of seats over from me because she knew a guy that I had became friends with. And she actually went to high school with him. So I thought right then that if I could have someone like that in my life, that would make all the difference in the world. And I actually prayed that God would send me somebody like her. To make a long story short, A little less than 5 years later, we were married. And Miriam made all the difference in my walk with Jesus, because she got me back in church. Through that, I started serving, teaching. We started into youth ministry. I started into music. And the most important thing, though, was that I started to learn who I was to God. God does not need us. He wants us. And if we can really grasp that, that makes all the difference. It did for me. But the thing was, my anxiety was still there. It still is today. Paul, in 2 Corinthians 12, talks about a problem he had. And he begged that it be taken away. And the answer he got was that my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. And Paul even went on to say, so now I'm glad to boast about my weakness, so that the power of Christ can work through me. Our weaknesses and our problems don't scare God. He still wants us anyway. And if we've given our life to Him, here's what we are to Him. We are loved. We are chosen. We're forgiven. We're a child of God. We're a masterpiece, a new creation. We're free, and we are holy. That's how God sees us. So if you're struggling during this crazy time, if you're afraid of what may happen, or if you just can't see the way through this, just know God is in control, that He wants you, and that if you've chosen Him, no matter what, He's got you. Fear has no power over a child of God. For me, I understand who I am, and I no longer choose the path of fear. I choose the path that lets my weakness push me to keep going, to keep serving, and to keep growing closer to God. Choose God's path for you. You'll never regret it.
I'm no longer a slave to fear. Oh, I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. Oh, I am a child of God. You unravel me with your melody. You surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemies, till all my fears are gone. I'm no longer a slave to fear. Oh, I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. Oh, I am a child of God. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Your love has called my name. I've been born again into your family. Your blood flows through my veins. I'm no longer a slave to fear. Oh, I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. Yes, I am a child of My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns, unending love, amazing grace. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. And like a flood, His mercy reigns, unending